Namaskar. We are fortunate enough to have Mr. Sugata Bose as our guest in our studio at Ahmedabad Management Association. We had planned his talk, a special talk on his recent book, but unfortunately due to flight which got cancelled, he could not be here on that day. But we are so much blessed and fortunate that today he visited here personally just to meet us and share his words of wisdom, his experience, and his thoughts about his book through this digital platform. So I'm sure you all are going to enjoy this next 10 to 15 minutes with him, which I will be interacting with him on his book. Sir, namaste. Welcome to Ahmedabad Management Association. We are truly blessed that you took out your time and you are here at AMA studio. Just straight away a point, what is it special about this book which you want to convey to our members and the viewers?
First of all, I'm very happy to be at the Ahmedabad Management Association. I had come here and spoken in your large auditorium 5.5 years ago. Unfortunately, because of a flight cancellation, I could not keep my engagement earlier this week. You know, this book, His Majesty's Opponent, first came out in 2011. But then there was a great deal of interest, and Harvard University Press wanted to bring out a 10th anniversary edition. Now that should have come out in 2021, but the pandemic was going on, so it came out in 2022. Ever since that, there has been a lot of discussion about Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose, his contribution in the Indian freedom struggle, but also his vision of the future. So what I wanted to convey to your members and to your students at AMA are basically two aspects of Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose's life and work. First of all, he was a soldier statesman, and he raised the Azad Hind Fauj, or the Indian National Army, which fought against the British and undermined the loyalty of soldiers, Indian soldiers, to the British King Emperor, and instilled in them a new loyalty to our motherland. That was his great contribution. When that happened, the British could not hold India in subjection anymore. Within this Azad Hind Fauj, he was able to unite all of the religious communities of India, all of the linguistic groups of India, and he also believed in equality between men and women, and even had a Rani of Jhansi regiment. So that is one aspect of Netaji's life. But he was not just a military hero. He always thought about the future. He believed that India would be free and there would have to be a social and economic reconstruction of the country. That is why when he was president of the Indian National Congress in 1938, he came to Gujarat. The session was held in Haripura, and he gave a very long speech where he laid out his blueprint of how we should rebuild our society based on equality, equal rights for everyone, and also build a modern industrial future for India. And later that year, he formed the National Planning Committee. He was very broad-minded. He included not just politicians and political leaders, even though he invited Jawaharlal Nehru to be the chairman of the Planning Committee. He had scientists like Meghnad Shah. He had two representatives from industry, from your management, two representatives from labor. And even though he was himself a believer in modern industry for India, he understood that he had to also give the Gandhians a place. So he included J.C. Kumarappa, who was a Gandhian purist who believed in village upliftment and cottage industries. So that is how he had articulated a far-sighted vision of how India can become a developed country very soon after independence. So on the one hand, he fought for independence. On the other hand, he was a philosopher, a thinker who had a clear vision of what India should become as a free country.
Fantastic. While listening this, I have a goosebumps. And if I go back to my school days, and probably each and every Indian would have once wearing this hat as a fancy dress, becoming Subhas Chandra Bose in their school days. And so as I am trying to recollect it, which also brings my another question to you, sir, is that how do you feel the connect between today's youth and the ideology which has been established by Subhas Chandra Bose, sir, that is connected or not connected, or what is your advice for today's youth so that we can recommend them, or we can expect them to take this legacy forward?
I think the youth are truly inspired by Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose. They are inspired both by his life of adventure. After all, he escaped from India. He was basically under very close police and intelligence surveillance after his hunger strike in prison. And I would like to tell the youth of today that my father, Shishir Kumar Bose, Netaji's nephew, was only 20 years old, a medical student, when his uncle called him and asked him to help in planning and executing the escape. Wow. And it was my father who then drove Netaji in his Wanderer car from Kolkata to Gomo, which is now in Jharkhand, at the first stage of his escape from India. If that had not been successful, then there would have been no Azad Hind Fauj. And later on, he took a young man who had been a student in Germany called Abid Hassan with him in a submarine for 90 days from Europe to Asia. So there is that, life of adventure, but also it was a life of great sacrifice. He had passed high into the Indian civil service, but he resigned as a young man of 24, and he plunged into the freedom struggle. So I think what the youth can take from his life and work is that, of course, they will have their own professions, they will have their own careers, but leave a little bit of time for public service, for service to people who are not as fortunate as you are in our country. So here was somebody who also was a leader of students and youth in the late 90s and early 30s. He used to go around the whole country and address student and youth conferences. And one of his books, in fact, was called Toruner Shopno, the dreams of youth. And after all, what he said when he took the leadership of the Azad Hind Fauj was that हम जिंदा या मरे वो कोई बात नहीं है, सही बात ये है, अहम बात ये है, हिंदुस्तान आज़ाद होगा. आज़ाद होगा. India is free, and because of his and his compatriots' great sacrifice, if we want to do true honor to him, we should follow his ideals and dreams. And I think the youth are attracted by what he represented.
Great. So a youth those days and youth today should have a connect between the integrity towards Mother Earth and the Mother Nation where we are
both.
Today.
Yes.
Both.
Yes.
So taking forward my last question to you, you have been an academician, literary laureate, historian, closely associated with the politics over the country and the international level. How do you see India at a global level today, and how does this pioneering efforts of the freedom fight is still helping us to create our identity? If you can share your thoughts.
Yes, I, of course, teach at Harvard, but again, in a spirit of public service, I came to India and served in our parliament in the 16th Lok Sabha from 2014 to 2019. There is no question that India is recovering the global position that it had lost 200 years ago. India had not been poor before. There is nothing ancient about India's poverty. We sank into, poverty with the takeover of the British in the late 18th and the early 19th century. we are now beginning to play the global role that we are entitled to. But of course, there are certain obstacles in the way. Those who are at the top echelons of the global power structure sometimes put up a little bit of resistance. But we must, overcome that resistance, go forward. And one other thing that I would like to say is that Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose showed us something about the politics of dignity, how you can have your own differences, but then be respectful towards somebody who may not entirely agree with your views. I hope we can recover that sense of respect and dignity in our public life. If we do that domestically, we will actually gain more respect internationally and globally. So I think our global ambitions are legitimate, and we should go forward and find our due place on the world stage. But at the same time, we should make sure that inside our country, those who are left behind are given opportunities, and we can build a beautiful India based on the principles of equality and unity, which Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose cherished.
Fantastic. So, taking these points right now, that dignity, determination, desire, dedication and dreams which Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose had, and we are fortunate enough that today the family of Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose, Mr. Sugata Bose, is sharing his vision, his family's contribution to the freedom fight, and this book will, I am sure that it will be a good read for everybody, every one of us, and let us have this dream in ourselves today also. The youth that day, the youth today and youth tomorrow will have to play a vital role for the mother nation, the mother earth. Let us have a good work done so that history remembers us. Thank you very much, sir, for being with us at AMA, and your next book, whether it is the next edition of this book or the new and fresh book, it is an open invitation. AMA is all yours, and we would like to host you once again. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind, sir.